taking their seats, please? We're going to start the event in 5 minutes, so if you can start taking your seats, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll do click get one mic.
So, oh yeah, clicker's a mic. It's one mic, one hand with clicker. Don't get.
Yeah. I should be able to do it.
You see the mute? That's working. That's working. Yeah. Right. It's just to show you the mic. So that's on.
Okay, yeah.
That's on. So you have clicker in one hand. So yeah, Antonio, if you just leave when you've done your bits, you can check her up on there. You just put on my.
Noswaith da, pawb. Croeso a Dolenni Digidol. Welcome to Dolenni Digidol. Harriet Green, I'm Harriet Green. I'm co-CEO of CDPS. And it is really exciting, actually. I feel a real buzz from this room and a real buzz for this event, because I feel this is going to be very exciting. I think we've got a lot of really interesting stuff to share with you. And I know we've got a room full of people who are going to ask interesting questions. So, this is our Dolenni Digidol. We run these senior networking events every couple of months in different parts of Wales on different topics, because basically to meet the national mission, the national intent to get going in Wales on digital transformation, we need leaders to meet and talk and share things, and that's what we want you to do tonight. So tonight's topic is, on everyone's lips, it's AI. And for us in the CDPS, we really want to ensure that we do our share to get benefit, to help organisations running public services to get benefit from AI. There's an awful lot of very appropriate, strong work going on around ethics and regulation and, how we can use AI in a way that is in keeping with the Future Generations Act. But we also need to get benefit for public services from AI. And that's kind of what the focus of this evening is. We've asked people to come and talk to you who have practical experience of deploying AI in very practical, real-world ways, including solving the pothole problem. Did you say call you Mr. Bottles? Mr. Bottles, I won't, but there we are. So yeah, we've got 5 people who are going to give us really good, clear, practical stuff around AI, and then it's open to you to ask questions and have a conversation. So I'm just going to do a bit of housekeeping. No planned fire drill, so run away. We will be taking photos throughout the event, so talk to one of the people in a green top if you don't want your photo shared. We will also be live streaming this event to enable more people to watch during the event and also to catch up with it afterwards. This is the second time we've done this. It worked really well the first time, I think. So that will be happening, and obviously we will be really promoting those videos. What else do I need to tell you? CDPS, I'll just give you a little bit on CDPS. So in terms of AI, so CDPS's work around AI flows from a discovery that we did, it's actually a year ago now. And the top 3 recommendations around that were to set up a pan-sector steering group so that we could work together across Wales, across the sectors on AI and get that joint kind of high-level view of what we were doing and what everyone was doing and how we could share. To set up a community of practice so that people working in this space in different organisations could get together, discuss, share, and that is a super popular community of practice. And then under the steering of the AI steering group to create a set of guidance for the public sector around AI that kind of had, as I say, a big start here sign. A kind of, under the guidance of the AI steering group, we assure you that if you start here on this guidance, it will help you. You'll find a place to start. So that guidance is available on the CDPS website. Right. So unless I've missed anything out that Mike will tell me, I will kick us off because we've got a lot to get through. So I'm going to kick off with Antonio Weiss. So Antonio, if you want to come up. Antonio is from a consultancy called the PSC. He's an award-winning author on various topics, including AI. He is an advisor to the UK government and a very helpful advisor to CDPS. So AI demystified in 10 minutes. Over to you, Antonio.
10 minutes, no pressure. Thank you so much for having me and inviting me here. It's a real privilege to see all of you on a beautiful day in here talking about AI, which shows the excitement that there is. I should say I have a book to plug. So there's the book. It's coming out next month. It's about effectively practical, pragmatic things that you can do to benefit from this latest wave of AI. And it was written whilst I was serving as a senior advisor to Keir Starmer, focusing on the ways in which public services could helpfully use AI, and happily there's lots of exciting things going on both across the UK and specifically in Wales, which I'd love to discuss with you later, but also from my experiences as a partner at the PSC, where we implement and look for responsible adoption of AI across public services. However, I wanted to really just kind of have one key message in my 10 minutes now, and then 3 points which I'd make through that. And the first is that particularly when we think about this latest generative AI focus, which is really what has captured so much imagination and attention, it's important and helpful to situate it in a much longer historical sweep of general purpose technologies. And the reason why that matters is not just because it's esoterically interesting, although it is. It's actually because that gives us a signpost to how these things will emerge. Electricity, it took really 50 years for the true benefits of the revolution that could afford to really be felt by people. And right now, we are in what I would call the in-between times, and other economists also do. And the question is, well, what can we do in that point, and how can we make a better future for that? 3 kind of main points that I'll say. The first is actually just what is this generative AI thing? Secondly, then, why it should be viewed as a general purpose technology, practically how that can help you, but most importantly, what can you do in this period? So hopefully this isn't wildly surprising for any of you, but it's always useful just to remind ourselves, I think, of what is this, particularly this generative AI phase built from. And there's effectively just 2 major inputs. One is the internet. Obviously, there's been some more development since then, but actually what is available on the open web, including Reddit. So one of the great findings which came out last year from the University of Tokyo is that if you are polite to large language models, they generate and deliver better answers. The reason for that is because they are trawling through many different sources, a lot of which is Reddit, and effectively those fora which are users are more polite to each other generate better quality answers. So just remind yourself, you're trawling through that material. Then there is something that's called transformer architectures applied, which is effectively just a way of understanding the relationship between words or between different, in this instance, they form tokens, and then they largely predict what should be the best, most sensible answer for a given prompt. So it could have been the fish is squeezed downstairs, but instead, given a given prompt, it would say this book is brilliantly written. And fundamentally, they are as complex as that and as simple as that. And we should, when we're seeking to demystify all of this, just remember there's something magical about them, but there is no magic. It is a way that humans have just developed this. I think it's helpful to say I started as a huge skeptic about generative AI technologies in particular. I just couldn't believe that this sort of fairy dust that could mimic human intelligence could be anywhere near as powerful as it is. However, over time and DeepSeek's new developments have changed this a bit. Actually, as models got larger, particularly in the last few years, that is against a human baseline. This chart effectively shows models have now surpassed average human capabilities across most dimensions, and we can say that's not right, we can say we don't like that, we can feel uncomfortable, but the brutal reality is across the things that we thought would never get disrupted, creativity, empathy, just individual engagement, actually the models generally, on the whole, across all of them, perform better than most humans, and indeed many of them perform much more advanced than PhD level research, and that is just a reality that we are living through. The reason why that second point I think is helpful is there have been a large number of transformational technologies which have developed over the course of human history. The spoken word, the motor car, electricity, the World Wide Web, all of those have shared certain characteristics. And those characteristics help to create a family which is known as general purpose technologies. And they have 4 defining features which have been identified. So there's a kind of a generic technology about them. And I think what we just talked through earlier in terms of that process from creating outputs through token prediction, that is the generic technology. There's initially scope for improvement, but actually comes to be used across the economy, and that's something that, in fact, this evening we will see just the many ways in which AI is being used, has many different uses, and indeed has what economists again call spillover benefits, so benefits in ways that we didn't truly understand. Now, this is essential to understanding, well, where could the benefits arise? And the thing that is most different about generative AI is that it has been incredibly rapid in its penetration. So you can look on the left-hand side, it took electric power 50 years to reach about 75% of the population. It took the telephone 50 years, it took the smartphone 8 years. In Norway, admittedly Norway isn't the rest of the world, but Norway is a good example. In 2 years, 75% of Norwegian businesses provide generative AI tools for their employees to use. This is remarkable levels of adoption. And what we therefore need to think through is, well, how is that going to change how we're working? How is that going to change in the short term, in the medium term, and in the longer term? The benefits of generative AI, I would say, and hopefully this evening again reinforces this, are already here. So when I started writing the book, I had a conversation with a CTO who I really commend and think is great, and they said this is complete nonsense. There are no enterprise level benefits which you can trust AI for, or indeed is going to happen. And I said, okay, great, well, could I talk with your software developers and see what they say? And so he said, yeah, I'd love to sit in on that. And he said, obviously, guys, you can tell him there's nothing here. And their response was, I completely understand why you say that. However, every single hour I use AI in my software development and my coding. It is almost impossible not to now because everything comes from GitHub and it's truly integrated. And it makes my life simple and it's easy, and why wouldn't I use it? And what we see, and this is very small, so I'll just give a couple of examples before wrapping up, is that actually the use cases for generative AI, one of the big things I wanted to focus on in the book is where are they proven? Where are they delivering benefit? It's across everything. So yes, it's in writing copy. Yes, it's in image creation. It's also in fraud detection. It's also increasingly in healthcare. It's also available in terms of software engineering is probably the most advanced one. So the limit is only really our creativity and our risk appetite in many ways. And I think we should come on to risk appetite for how we can gain that. A few examples just to show, although we'll have more later. Knowledge workers. So this was a Harvard Business School study of management consultants. Nobody's going to cry if management consultants go out of business too much. They probably thought they would be immune. I say that as a consultant. 40% quality improvements, 21% speed improvements, over 12% productivity improvements. And those are for some of the hard questions. If you look at the tasks that they were asked to do, write a 500-word memo to your boss, write a Harvard Business Review style article, lists initial segments for a new target addressable market. All of these exceeded the normal human standard without AI, with AI. Customer service, Klarna, Octopus Energy, others are demonstrating that you can save money and, importantly, deliver a better quality of service to customers using AI tools. And the better quality of service is real. We've all been annoyed on the telephone with a bad interaction. Actually, AI can be more empathetic and better on that. And actually, I think it's in the family of using different AI technologies together that we're going to see the greatest benefits. Duolingo uses AI very much with human interfaces in order to create better and more educational systems. MasterCard is great at fraud detection. This is a fantastic example where a huge Bollywood star, the biggest Bollywood star, they used voice dubbing, video generative AI, and geolocating to target 5,000 ads out across India over Diwali. The final thing, though, that I would say is that in this rapidly moving world, we've got to be careful because almost everything is up for grabs. So I remember not long ago that everyone assumed pre-COVID that on-site working was the norm. Hybrid is now the norm. I remember we thought driverless cars would never happen. Actually, Wave in the EU, the UK car as well, startup, has now put in millions and millions of miles in many states in the US where you can have that. Digital ID is increasingly becoming a focus. It was only in 2001 that in the Department for Education there was a big issue around mutant algorithms marking students' homeworks. Now, proactively, the government is focusing on using AI for exam assessment. So all of this is changing enormously. At the moment, the prevailing narrative is don't worry about AI because humans will always be in the loop. I challenge that it may be naive to assume that that is always going to be the case. So one of the questions for gathering together is, well, how can we, as senior leaders, deal with that future reality? The final bit that I will say is that in the long sweep of general purpose technologies coming and changing the ways that societies work, there's a few things that you would never, ever, ever, ever regret doing. And happily, it's getting together tonight to share experiences, to share lessons learned, to actually not be afraid to share where things aren't working, and to try and educate, test, pilot, experiment, and learn from all of those experiences. It is only through doing that that we will overcome skepticism, concerns, work out where the true risks lie, and actually be able to make AI benefit us rather than just technology. So I will leave there and welcome our next speaker.
Thank you, Antonio. That's really, really interesting. I think the bit where you say, do say please and thank you, I've been saying, don't say please and thank you because I want us to remember that AI is our slave, not our master. But you're saying you get a better quality of result. So I'm going to change my behavior on that. So I'm going to introduce our next speaker, my best Spanish accent. So Dr. Jose Norambuena Contreras,
Perfect.
Senior Lecturer at Swansea University Civil Engineering Department. Over to you.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me very well? Probably yes. So thank you for the invitation and thank you for coming today. Let me try this one. So that's the next. No, thank you. That's for you. Fantastic. Yeah, it's me. So thanks for coming today. So I'm really happy to be here. So during the next 5 minutes in my case, let me introduce this fantastic topic concerning to join two different topics, artificial intelligence plus smart materials to resolve a very traditional problem across the UK, potholes. To introduce the discussion, please help me with that. Hans, you, okay, yes. That's fantastic. I'm sorry about that. So basically the potholes is a big problem across the UK. So basically the potholes only during the last year, over that 1.9 million of potholes was filled. including England, London, and Wales. So basically, the pothole is a damage on the roads. If you consider the asphalt mixture is a combination plus bitumens and aggregates. But the bitumen is only 5% of the total weight of the asphalt mixture. But the property of the bitumen is very mandatory to evaluate the mechanical properties in the asphalt roads. So at the same time, the rainwater is another problem inside the roads. The water infiltration to the roads produce damage in the different problems, cracking, potholes, different damage. So basically, the bitumen is a complex material with organic structure. The bitumen is a sticky black materials with very incredible properties. If you reduce the viscosity of the bitumen can flow inside the asphalt. At the same time, is a self-healing material itself. The self-healing material is possible to close the crack autonomously, modify the bitumen inside the materials. So at the same time, the cracking and oxidation is a big problem in the bitumens because it's organic molecules. We can produce several damages inside the bitumens. If you reduce the property of the bitumen, you produce cracking. If you produce cracking, you produce microcrack. Microcrack, and after that, is a big pothole on the roads. So at the same time, it's a healing materials. For that reason, in order to resolve two problems, the cracking, to understand the cracking, understand the oxidation, at the same time, increase the healing property of the bitumens, we can use artificial intelligence. In this case, in collaboration with King's College of London and Google Cloud and Swansea University, we propose a specific model to understand the molecular structure of the bitumen in order to design much better bitumen for roads. So basically, in this video, you can see different molecules inside the bitumen. This is an artificial bitumen to understand the oxidation problems inside the materials. If you can control the design of the bitumens, you can propose much better material for roads. For that reason, we study using data-driven models by using bitumen oxidation problem inside the material, by using artificial intelligence to resolve this problem by using Google Cloud. Definitely, it's impossible to resolve this problem in experimental design. For that reason, we need artificial intelligence to propose to modeling by using, in this case, machine learning tools. But at the same time, to resolve the healing problems, this is my big topics. I am not an expert in artificial intelligence. Sorry, Antonio. So for that reason, we need to introduce, as you can imagine this situation, you have the Lycopodium clavatum, this is a plant. You can use spore, you can use pollen to introduce inside the pollen sunflower oils, recycled sunflower oil. Recycled sunflower oil is an oil with very rich component in aromatic components structure. For that reason, we can introduce the spot with oils inside the roads, and after the trigger, the mechanical trigger, we can stimulate the micro capsules, and the sunflower oil release inside the bitumens, reduce the viscosity, flow the bitumen inside the microcrack, and close the crack autonomously. This is a self-healing process by using natural spore. Basically, under experimental conditions, we can close the microcracks in approximately 50 minutes. And we can extend the surface life of the road in approximately 30%, approximately. Definitely, we need to improve the microcapsule, we need to improve the technology in order to include this solution on the real roads. At the same time, and in conclusion, so benefits of the next step. So basically, we can extend the surface life by using microcapsule solution and self-healing properties. We can reduce the maintenance, we can increase the safety, no potholes, environmental benefits, can extend the surface life of the roads, enhance the road performance, crack healing solution for the new roads. And the next step include the bitumen performance simulations to optimize the process, to using artificial intelligence to optimize the process, and optimization of the spore capsules to hopefully maybe resolve the problem for the pothole in the future. Thank you for your attention. 5 minutes? Perfect.
Thank you, Jose. So my question is, does Keir Starmer know? Because he's just about to spend how much on potholes? 8 billion? Well, I can't remember. 10 billion? Oh, 1 billion. I've just wildly exaggerated. Right, okay then. So on to our next case study. It's Chris Owen, who is Chief Digital Officer at Neath Talbot Council, leader of a thriving, innovative, forward-looking digital department. And please join us and talk about your case study. Thank you.
Thank you for the introduction. And good evening, everyone. I'm Chris Owen, as Harriet said, I'm the Chief Digital Officer for Neath Talbot Council. Just to give you a bit of context to start with from a local government perspective, clearly you'll all be aware of the huge financial pressures that we're under in local government, some of the big challenges that we're faced with. And for Neath Talbot to quantify that, it looks like we have to deliver the same services that we're currently delivering, but for 20% less cost. So that introduces some real challenges for us in terms of service delivery. Obviously, from a council perspective, we are looking at how we can use digital technologies where appropriate to try and support services in terms of their transformation, to try and help them ease out some efficiencies and deliver in a much more streamlined way. Artificial intelligence, as we've heard from some much better speakers than me already, is obviously massive at the moment. It is taking a real grip and it's on the tip of everyone's tongue. But there's also a lot of myths around the subject as well. There's a lot of fears, there's a lot of concerns around what it means for organisations and local authorities in terms of their delivery. We've seen some of the headlines coming out of the UK government around the need to streamline some of the civil service and to cut some of the waste, as it were, within those organisations. And I'm guessing that inevitably using artificial intelligence as a lever to drive some of that is going to be a big piece going forwards. What we've also seen is some massive statements around UK becoming a global powerhouse in artificial intelligence, leading the world, etc. And I think what we need to see is funding coming down on the back of that to help us on the ground make it an absolute reality as we embed these technologies. But I'm here to talk to you this morning, or this afternoon, about one of our examples in Neath Talbot, which is around the use of a product called Magic Notes. So essentially, Magic Notes is a transcription product that allows social workers to record in-person or telephone meetings with the residents that they're engaging with, and for the product to then transcribe that meeting into predefined templates, which they can then review and upload into their case management systems. When we came across Magic Notes last year, it was off the back of some work done by the London Borough local authorities, where they were basically raving about the potential of this product. And as with all these things, on the surface, it sounds a bit too good to be true. Some of the savings that they were saying were being made in terms of time savings and the efficiencies, the benefits, were just amazing. So we embarked on a bit of a pilot with Magic Notes to see if it really lived up to the hype. And for us, initially, we wanted to look at 3 key areas around how Magic Notes could benefit our social workers in Neath Talbot. We wanted to drill into the time savings that the product could generate. We wanted to look at the quality of the transcriptions. And then we wanted to look at some of the user sentiment. So feedback from our social workers about how they found the product and was it adding the value that we thought it would add. So the timeline that we worked to was very aggressive. So this wasn't something that you do over years and years and years and you never get to the outcomes. It was very much a case of let's get it in, let's trial it, let's get the feedback, and let's make a decision on how we want to move forward. So from August through to November, we'd agreed our pilot scope, we'd gone into pilot, we'd done all the sort of hard lifting around sort of data protection impact assessments, information governance, which are usually blockers within local government, knocked all those barriers down, got the pilot group up and running, and got the product starting to be used. In terms of what we then found out of the pilot itself, first area, as I said, was around time savings, and the feedback was phenomenal. We were seeing in the region of 7.5 hours per social worker admin time saved as a result of using this product. And when you talk to the social work teams, they talk about an 80-20. And at the moment, they're saying that they're spending 20% of their time with the residents, dealing with the issues, dealing with the cases that are coming through, and 80% on back office activities, administration, typing notes up, clarifying things, and so on and so forth. And their goal was around shifting that to the other way around, so 80% of their time is being spent with the residents. With these levels of savings, they're certainly starting to eat into that direction now. So not only is it creating a huge time saving for the social workers, but what they've also seen is the turnaround time of putting assessments through to the back office teams is that much quicker. Because if they're sitting in a meeting with the resident, they're recording that meeting, by the time they've driven in their car back to the office, that is already sitting in their inbox as a transcribed meeting note into an existing template that they already use, which they can proofread and then put straight into the system. But more so, some of the fringe benefits they've seen have been around the benefits of engaging with the residents without having a clipboard in front of them, which they're writing on and recording the conversations. So having a free-flowing conversation, being able to unpick exactly what the challenges are that the residents faced with, knowing that it's been captured into their predefined templates, has massively changed their way of engaging. But what we've also seen is the to-ing and fro-ing then between the back office and the social workers themselves has also been reduced massively because of the accuracy levels that are coming through in the transcription being much higher. The clarity and the sort of clarification questions that they had previously are no longer happening. So it just goes through, they're able to process it, and the care packages that we can then put in place for the residents are turned around much quicker. In terms of the quality and the accuracy, we'd seen with other products that we'd used previously that the accuracy levels weren't always as good as they could be. So we've seen in the region of 80% levels of accuracy. Again, with Magic Notes, we were a bit skeptical at some of the claims that were coming through, but based on the feedback from the social workers around the levels of accuracy for the transcriptions that were coming through, they were getting 97% accuracy levels, which again is phenomenal. With some of our accents, some of the way the conversations are happening, again, not always easy for these types of technologies to properly transcribe, but again, this really hit the mark. And it is also being further developed now to support Welsh language use as well. So there's lots of options in that space. But again, seeing those levels of accuracy builds the confidence then within the workforce. They get a much better sense of it. They don't feel as though they're having to go back through and completely rewrite everything, which is just a waste of time. So their sort of level of enthusiasm then also grew on the back of that. Which leads me then nicely into the user sentiment piece. So it's as though we've just invented fire for some of these social workers, if I'm honest with you. We've put it out there, they've seen it, they've been absolutely blown away by it. And of course, it's something now that they say, if we take it away, they're going to leave. They absolutely want to keep it. It's something that they're going to embed in their ways of working. And as it says, they couldn't imagine not using it now. So it has really sort of gone down an absolute storm. One of the biggest successes for us, though, around this has been the ability to identify a champion within social care to absolutely take this and run it with the workforce. This is not just about dropping another bit of technology in place and all of a sudden, hey presto, it transforms everything. You've got to still have the people on the ground who understand how the technology works, but also understand the service that they're delivering to so that they can help the workforce properly embed this in their ways of working. And we identified at very early doors a social care champion who's now become an AI champion in social care to absolutely drive that across the workforce there. There's just some quotes there which are going to be too small, but I'm sure the slide deck will be shared around. You can have a look at those. Just to also say, though, it's not just about looking at a single product set for Neath Talbot. Our strategy is around looking at a range of different products and services that are out there to support transformation in social care, but also in education, in our sort of environment directorates, and the other areas that we provide service to within the council. Some of you will know, as councils, we deliver 900 plus services, so they're really diverse organisations, lots of different service delivery challenges, lots of different potential that we've got for using generative artificial intelligence. But it's also important that we don't pigeonhole ourselves into a single product set. On top of that, what we don't want to do is just deploy things and hope for the best. It's all about approaching it in a very structured, managed way, wrapping support around it. We have a transformation team that's supporting the deployment of tools like Copilot at the moment within the organisation, sharing the case studies, sharing the working practices, and giving people hints and tips as to what they could do with it. And it's through those types of approaches that we're seeing big success, specifically around Copilot. GitHub Copilot is also being used by our developers at the moment, and that's transforming how they develop their code. We're doing proof of concepts with AWS. You name it, we've got a sort of iron in the fire, but all done in a very structured and managed way. Thank you.
Fabulous. Thanks so much, Chris. I can kind of imagine that those case notes might even be better. Because I'm just kind of imagining those times when the social worker's tired, it's late in the afternoon. Copilot never gets tired, does it? Magic Notes never get tired. Thank you. Just going to hand out some headsets, actually. Anyone who wants to... we're simultaneous translator here, so we want to enable the Q&A to be bilingual as well. So we'll just hand out some headsets to those who want them. So, thank you very much, Chris. So our next speaker, Gareth Jones, Chief Digital Officer, Carmarthenshire County Council, and again, another really kind of, I would say, go-getting, thriving council in terms of digital approaches. And you're going to share with us another approach to AI. Thank you, Gareth.
Absolutely. Diolch yn fawr. Pnawn da, pawb. O, noswaith dda erbyn nawr, falle. So, good afternoon or good evening by now. Gareth Jones, Chief Digital Officer for Canolfan County Council. Na I symud rhwng y ddoi iaith, falle. A fwy na hapus ar ôl I cymryd cwestiynau yn y Gymraeg neu'r Saesneg neu'r ddwyieithog, beth bynnag. Hoffech chi siarad ynddo. So I'm really happy to take questions in English or Welsh afterwards, and I may well toggle between both languages throughout. Thank you very much to CDPS for the invite and for the opportunity. It's great to see you all. That's really exciting. I've already learnt a lot, so it's good. Great. I'm going to talk about one of our practical uses of AI in Carmarthenshire. So in a similar vein to Chris, as he's described, we're all pursuing, numerous AI, tangible, practical AI applications and uses in our local authorities. And the one I'm going to talk about today specifically is how we're using some AI-powered cyber capability to help keep us safe and, more importantly, keep our residents and our data and our capability and our services safe. So we're actually in the process of developing a new AI and data strategy, and the strapline is here on the slide. So that's enhancing public services, empowering our workshop. That sort of gives you a feel as to where we see AI, how it fits in. It's certainly not going to replace our workforce, that's for sure. That's probably a different slide deck for another time. We'll deal with the shark first. So the shark is to represent the jaws of death. The jaws of death being the situation we face as public sector and public services. Rapidly, I was looking for an image, and a colleague suggested the sharks to represent that, which is rapidly growing demand on our services for a number of reasons, which you'll all be aware of, and flatlined or decreasing in real terms resources, capability, money. It's as simple as that. And cyber, for us, in this particular use case that I'm talking about, is sort of a microcosm of public services and local government in that sense. The demand on us and the threat and the risk and the things that are hitting us from a cyber perspective are through the roof and growing daily. Again, that would be a different slide deck, and we have those, but the number of brute force attacks, malicious things that hit our filters, entry points to our network, everything from internal insider threat all the way up to the geopolitical situation, and what you can imagine is being driven by some of that and some of the organised crime and cyber crime that's funded globally, who aren't sitting there thinking, let's smash Carmarthenshire County Council, but they are sitting there thinking, let's smash the UK's public sector. And it's very serious, and we see it every day. And Chris, this will resonate with Chris and lots of other people. It is through the roof. You get my point. So that's the problem for us in this particular use case. So we have some AI capability that we use to help keep us safe. I won't go into great detail on the technical side of it, although happy to take any questions, and there's a colleague in the room who can help as well. So if anybody does want to know more, please do ask. We've had this capability for 18 months or so, and you can see from the bullet points the sorts of things it does. So it has learnt our environment. So as a local authority, Chris, I think you said 900, yeah? I was told 750 a couple of weeks ago, and I found that hard to believe in terms of the number of services we deliver, but let's go with 900. The breadth of our services is enormous as a local authority. Everything from planning to education to schools to communities, social care, country parks, leisure centres, the list goes on and on. So as you can imagine, our digital environment, system services, infrastructure, data is vast. It's enormous, from devices and smartphones and laptops to infrastructure, networks, servers, virtualized, physical, systems hosted or still on-prem for some things, others in the cloud, distributed with multiple vendors. You get the picture. It's horrendously complex. This AI capability has learned that network. It's learned what's normal. It's learned our unique environment. And then it can monitor and help protect us 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days of the year. It can analyze hundreds of events a second. Its capability, far outstrips what we can do as human beings. So we have that. It helps keep us safe. It alerts us. We've allowed it to take action in some scenarios. It prioritizes threat for us and flags that to our cyber team. But what's really important, and the point I want to get to is, this has not replaced anybody. In fact, we've grown our cyber team over the last couple of years. It just massively complements what those people do and their expertise and their capability and their skills and their knowledge. It turbocharges their productivity and just keeps us so much safer than we were without it. What we pay for it annually would probably fund a couple of cybersecurity specialists. The reality is, to match what this tool can do, 24 hours a day, 365 days of the year, we could probably employ an army of cybersecurity specialists, and they still wouldn't get through the work that this thing gets through for us. So that's really the point I wanted to make. It's complementary. It hasn't taken anyone's jobs. There are no downsides, in the same way that Chris has talked about magic notes on this particular use case again. There are no downsides for us. And that's really the key learning. And the reason for the image around people is that they're not out of the loop in this scenario. So that's the key message for us. Accountability remains with our cybersecurity manager, with his manager, and ultimately with me. The responsibility for keeping us safe and directing that tool and using it or choosing not to use it for certain things remains with us. That's the key takeaway, really, and the key message for us on this particular use case. Papa Siawni cymryd unrhyw cwestiynau. Very happy to take any questions.
Jochi fawr, Gareth. Yeah, we'll keep questions to the end. I'm sure there will be lots. Really powerful. I can't imagine why everyone wouldn't do what you're doing. Amazing. So our last speaker is Smera Jayadeva from the Turing Institute, who've worked with our AI steering group, who've supported CDPS and no doubt others in the Welsh public sector. So Smera is a researcher for data justice and global ethical futures at the Turing Institute. Do come up.
So I'm going to keep it simple. There's only one slide on mine, and I'm not going to sell you any real product, but I'm instead going to ask you to maybe take a moment to engage with a bit of a creative reflection with me. And we're going to do this using the Future Generations, the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act. So one of the great things about this act is its foundation within the Sustainable Development Goals, that is the UN SDGs, and as highlighted in the title itself, a very future-oriented focus. If we want future generations to actually have a strong social and natural environment, we need to consider now the kind of policy interventions we want to safeguard that very future. But what role could AI play in that future, and how do we possibly see this interlinking with Welsh Public Services? So to quick kick things off before we go through with everything, I hope everyone's aware about all of these goals. I suspect, being from public sector yourselves, this is something that you have to work with on a regular basis. But for those who may not be aware, we have, say, a prosperous Wales, or focusing on aspects like low carbon and a productive society, a resilient Wales, so looking at a Wales with a strong natural environment and social environment, a more equal Wales to give everyone the opportunity to succeed, a healthier Wales for better mental and physical health, Wales of cohesive communities, a Wales of vibrant culture and a thriving Welsh language. I actually have been trying to learn Duolingo Welsh, and I have many problems with that, but we can speak about that later. And finally, a globally responsible Wales. Now, keeping in mind all of these different aspects which fundamentally aim to protect communities again for the future and ensure that those kind of interventions that we have ensure the future of these communities are protected in the face of increasing technology or increasing datafication. I ask you to just take a moment and imagine a hypothetical Welsh town. Now, this town has experienced a flight of talent to the cities. Now, these could be cities within Wales, but it's very likely, based on current data estimates, that many people have run off to London, where the quality of life, whether or not it's better, doesn't matter, because they end up getting paid more if they do end up securing a job. But at the same time, this little Welsh town is optimally located. It has the finest of real estate, which means lots of land, easy access to water bodies, and is surrounded by these enthralling mountains. Now imagine this lucky little town has been selected as one of the spots for a massive data center. A local MP has also advocated that this could be the economic rejuvenation for the town, which still holds strong memories pre-deindustrialization. Now, for a prosperous town, for a prosperous Wales, this town is told that there's a wealth of jobs available with the creation of this data center. But the best part is they could also lead to secondary job creation. So not just the people coming in to create this center and develop these kind of data server farms, but also bring in their families, and possibly with the bringing in of larger groups of talented individuals, rejuvenate the local pubs, the local restaurants. So that secondary job creation could also be considered in this, and create a new entirely new community itself. Interestingly, the hypothetical host company who requires this server farm is also offering the local town a sample of their new digital health interface. So locals could use this to get healthcare advice and hopefully reduce the burden on the NHS, which, as everyone is aware, is overly burdened. Unfortunately, the problem with all of this, and whilst this might seem like the best opportunity and a way to really rejuvenate a lot of towns that really do need that change, is that current estimates suggest that data centers would not bring the rejuvenation they require. For one, the job creation is more so a myth than it is something that can actually be applicable, especially if you look at cases in the US. So there might be jobs in the construction of the site itself, but post-construction, you're looking at a handful of security personnel to actually protect the place, and maybe technical engineers. And in the future, these technical engineers may not even need to live close to this farm, but could actually be called in from nearby cities. So are we really looking at job creation, the influx of new families, and that whole second-degree job creation as mentioned before? Then we have the problem of energy consumption. Everyone's aware, since the increasing use of generative AI, that there is a huge burden on energy consumption. And this would mean we're going to probably go back to fossil fuels or increase our use on it rather than transitioning away from it, because we may not have the alternatives in this tiny little town, say wind, solar, and so forth. Then there comes the potential overuse of water for cooling servers, which may affect, say, for instance, farmers who are working in the area. Now, beyond that environment and concerns of labor, there is also a red flag to be raised with the introduction of that healthcare digital interface I'd mentioned earlier. Does this interface affect the connectivity within the community? Can older generations, who often tend to prefer in-person consultation, be able to navigate such a digital platform? Importantly, has it been sufficiently trained in the Welsh language itself in order to provide advice bilingually? Now, I've painted a very negative picture of what all of this is, especially after the phenomenal conversation that said AI is the future, data is the future. I'm not saying that it's not. The whole problem with all of this is that there were individuals at the heart of it who made these kind of decisions. And the problem with some of these decisions is that they might not have consulted or engaged with the right stakeholders or involved proper governance methods to ensure such a solution is actually sustainable. Rather than using Welsh land to build a data server, we actually use it for a sustainable future and a sustainable economic progress in the region, which can hopefully expand and go forth. So what I want to end on is a few points about why it's important to introduce these kind of actions with a focus on AI-based governance, and that links back to the Welsh Future Generations Act. We need to ensure that stakeholders are consulted across the project, not only impacted groups, but third sectors who can often speak on larger groups of people, and professional bodies, so say groups of doctors who have experience with this rather than just a tech company who might have maybe worked with a management consultancy before deploying this solution. We also need to importantly look at principles of fairness and non-discrimination, ensuring that the data that we're using to train some of these systems are reflective of the population, especially a diverse population, and reducing biases and discriminatory behavior within that application. It is also important to be transparent and explainable, so not just how the system works, so this unboxing of the black box, but also explaining to the people on whom this technology is being used, how it's being used. Now, see, Magic Notes was a great concept. It's helping a lot of folks. Now, imagine if Magic Notes was actually being used to make a decision on the social care or the movement of children into foster care. Does the child not deserve to be informed of these kind of decisions? And if so, how do we explain this very complicated machinery to someone who's 5 years old? And at the end of it, that kind of explainability is important, because that is very much that future generation that needs to be safeguarded and protected. Now, I'm not going to go into the safety protocols, because you already heard that there is a need for those kind of cybersecurity elements, as well as other issues such as brittleness and so forth. But we also, most importantly, need to hold someone accountable. And this will probably go back to one of the first few slides that we'd seen. Is there a future for a human in the loop? The choice is actually within us. These are not technologies that come out of a vacuum. These are technologies built on human interactions, on our data, on human experiences. And if we want to continue using it, we can always have the choice to have a human in the loop, and those choices come from an individual who can be held accountable further down the line. Hopefully that ends a bit more on a positive note than the extremely negative case study that I've given, and we can probably take some more questions and explore this further.
Brilliant. Thank you, Smera. But it's so interesting, isn't it, the human in the loop point, because I cling on to this idea that we must be the master, AI must be either the eager intern or even the slave. And we were on a course last Friday, an AI course at Cardiff University, and there were speakers talking about, the spooky thing it does and the magic thing it does. And I was saying, it is not magic. It is not spooky. We have made it like this to do these things. It's not magic. It's not spooky. We did it. It's man-made. Anyway, I'm going to ask our speakers to come up and take a seat. And it's over to the room now. You have your headsets. If anyone wants to, we're able to support bilingual questions and answers. And yeah, everyone have a seat. And we've got, I think, about half an hour for questions from the room. So we've got microphones. So if you want to put your hand up, our people with the mics will come to you, and we can either volunteer, or I will volunteer people to answer. Okay, so who wants to go first? Glyn. Please say who you are before you speak. Thank you.
Evening, everybody. I'm Glyn Jones, Chief Digital Officer, Welsh Government. I'm going to ask the question in Welsh, so warning. And also I apologise, because I suspect it's almost exactly the same question I asked Gareth in Carmarthen whenever we were there. So, reit, dwi'n mynd I ofyn cwestiwn am cydweithio. Mae'n ffitio'r ddau o'r cyflwyniadau. So, Chris, diolch fawr iawn am y cyflwyniad addechog. Os dwi'n gyfarwyddwr gwasanaethau cymdeithasol, os dwi'n gweld hwnna, pam dydw I ddim eisiau just gwneud hynny yn syth? Felly, cwestiwn ydy, sut ni'n gallu cael yr ymarfer yma, yr un cwestiwn dwi hyd yn gofyn, sut ni'n gallu cael yr ymarfer yma ar draws awdurdod y lleol, ac un atab ydy, wrth gwrs, dim cwestiwn o ni yn y byd digidol gweithio fo ydy, mae'n rhaid i'r gwasanaethau isio fo. So mae'r cwestiwn fan'na, sut gallwn ni wneud hynna? How do we hardwire collaboration? This is always our question. A wedyn, cwestiwn dilynol am yr cyflwyniad olaf, ni gyd yn gofyn yr un cwestiynau am yr effaith ar yr amgylchedd o AI. Dwi'n cael pobl yn gofyn I fi yn y Llywodraeth, well, using Copilot's an expensive way in the environment of just speeding up some work, isn't it? So sut ni'n gallu gweithio gyda gilydd I ddeall yr effaith yna,
a rhoi offer yna mewn lle i ni gyd wneud hynna mewn gilydd, ac hefyd i herio'r vendors i wneud siŵr bod be maen nhw'n deitha ni am net zero yn wir. Diolch yn fawr.
Champion in so by identifying the champion within the service area, that really helped us put a foundation in place which expedited the ability to deploy it into the wider workforce. I think part of the work I've been doing in East Abertawe over the last couple of years, though, has been around building that trust in our digital data and technology strategy, working across all service areas, working with directors to understand where the challenges are and how they can trust where we're trying to take digital to deliver service change for them. So Magic Notes has gone into adult services with ourselves, which has got a huge increase in demand. People presenting with more complex needs and so on and so forth. So the pressures financially coming through there are massive. So when I go to the director and go to the senior management team and explain to them, there is a solution here which is going to give you all these benefits for a relatively moderate cost, they are very keen to try it. It's about the culture in the organisation, receptiveness to change, to actually then drive that through. How do we take it across the other 21 local authorities, and how do we take it to scale? I think it's a difficult conversation because everyone is at very different starting points in their journeys. The cultural maturity in some of the other local authorities may not be at the same level. So there's a piece to do there to get that baseline up to the level it needs to be so that we can start to make real inroads across the country with these types of technologies. But what I would say is that following the work that we've done, we've shared all of the DPIAs, information governance pieces, our findings with all of the local authorities that want to listen. We've given them all the templates, we've given them all of the pieces to the jigsaw to allow them just to get on with this and to move forward without any barriers. And I think the more sharing we can do like that, this is just one example, there'll be lots of others that we can do, the better pace we'll be able to move at across the rest of the local authorities.
Smera, yeah.
Hello? Yeah. So on the second question, that is a really hard question to answer. It's like, what's the solution to climate change? And I'm not saying I have that. But I think when it comes to, say, situations where we're looking at introducing these different forms of technology, or let's just say a project like that data farm that I mentioned earlier, a huge part of that is understanding the contextual requirements. And if we're not engaging with the right people at the right time to know what that's going to look like, we're not looking at something sustainable long run. Because if we're not speaking to the communities who are going to be impacted by this, you're probably going to look at a top-down implementation of something without an on-ground understanding of what the actual requirements are. Maybe that could be in terms of the water consumption that the locals need versus an estimate that was made based on data from the ONS and not really reflective of how weather patterns are, say, changing it. But at the same time, there is also something to be said about, weirdly enough, the irony of using AI to battle that very climate change that it might be causing, because we have seen possible solutions of AI in, carbon monitoring for weather pattern prediction and so forth. And there have been certain studies, I can't say a huge number of it, but a few that are looking at promising sustainable, environmentally sustainable solutions to using AI to confront these kind of environmental challenges. So I think it really is a matter of balancing both of those, but really at the heart of it, ensuring that there is a focus on the societies that are going to be impacted rather than using AI for AI's sake.
Gareth, you wanted to come in?
Yeah, hi Glenn. So just on the first question, how we scale it up, I would suggest that ultimately it'll come down to us as individuals and the relationships we have across Wales and the Welsh public sector and the other sectors of the economy as well. And I would say that is streets ahead of where it was in my experience only a few years ago. The pressure that we're all under, the challenges that we all face, I sense among colleagues like Matt, Chris, myself, yourself, Glenn, and plenty of other people, we're just past hiding things and trying to compete with each other and beat each other. I just don't sense that anymore. There's a real appetite to share and collaborate, and ultimately we've just got to push on with that. These forums, these organisations, these relationships, it will come down to that in the end. And we need to ramp it up, keep going. The other thing I would say, and we've seen this internally, there's something about equity when it comes to AI. So in the co-pilot trials we've run, I'm sure Chris will have seen it with Magic Notes, the list goes on. When you give it to some and not others, and those some are delivering or receiving significant benefits from a work-life balance perspective, from just a mundane workload, doing the heavy lifting perspective, there's a real drive then to say, why has he or she got it and I haven't got it? When am I getting it? So we've seen that within the organisation, but we definitely see it, and probably are seeing it, with the other organisations, our peers, our other local authorities across Wales, where, we've certainly had discussions internally with directors and heads of service around, we're already competing for certain skills and expertise and job roles. Something like Magic Notes for social workers, for example, that could be the tipping point where they leave us and go elsewhere. So there's something about that equity. It comes up again and again and again in the work we've been involved in. And just on the last question, I would say this is something we've pondered recently, and I would, on a really practical perspective, we've got to build it onto our contracting and our procurement and our spend. We have to hold them to account, collectively, because collectively it's a pretty big deal, our spend. We've got to build it in. We've got to, you have to, if you want our money and you have to win our business, you have to prove to us that you are sustainable. You're doing everything you can to protect the environment, to adhere to the Wellbeing and Future Generations Act. For me, that's one of the most practical things we can do.
Chris.
Can I just quickly add as well, because it'd be remiss of me not to say this while I've got the opportunity with Glyn in the room, that we are doing this at the moment. Well, I'm certainly doing it in Neath Patel, but on a bit of a shoestring. We don't have lots of money to throw at this. We can see lots of potential. We can see lots of opportunities, but it is being done within our existing budgets, which are under extreme pressure. So whilst we can carve out some use cases, some spend to save examples, it's going to be slow going because the money just isn't there to invest in it. So if anything can be done on a national level to try and expedite some of the funding that would absolutely unlock some huge opportunities, we would obviously look to you to support us with that.
Lovely. Don't have a fight here, though. Right. Okay. So let's have another question. That was, and I would love this evening to be an evening that results in people saying, "God, we've got to get that Magic Notes. We've got to get that cyber approach. That would be fantastic." Another question.
Hi, I'm Sharon Thomas, University of South Wales. I'm the Intensive Learning Academy for Digital Transformation lead. One of the things on those case studies you talked about, how did you get across the problem of digital literacy within staff using the systems? And more importantly, how did you manage to influence your board's senior leadership teams to actually take a risk on something like this? Because I would imagine, and from what I've seen, that's probably one of the biggest barriers you've got to get across, because when you start talking digital in some of these organisations, the fog comes down and the mind closes a little bit. So I'm just really interested how you got it through.
Yep, Chris, do you want to pick that up?
Yeah, sure. Thank you. So dealing with social workers, the digital divide piece is significant. There's a whole range of different skills out there in terms of where they are in terms of the capabilities of using digital technology. With something like this particular product, it is very simple and very straightforward for them to use. So they're already familiar with using the case management system where they put information in around the residents as part of the assessments that they're undertaking. What this is effectively, there's a button on their mobile phone. At the start of the meeting, they just get consent from the end user to say, "Are you happy that we record this meeting?" They say yes, they literally press the button. At the end, they press the button again. And by the time they're back in the office, they've got an email sitting there saying, "Your meeting has now been transcribed into your pre-existing templates." They open it up, check it through, copy and paste it into the case management system, and it's as simple as that. So from a technical perspective, it is a very simple, it's been designed by social workers for social workers, and that's really important so that they understand how it needs to operate, and take all those pain points away from the end user. So that's been the biggest piece for us. In terms of getting the buy-in from a strategic perspective, probably shouldn't admit it in this type of forum, but I took the decision that this was something that we could not afford not to do. So it was very much a case of, we're going to try this, we call them strategic bets effectively. This is a strategic bet that we think is going to have a significant impact on social workers. Given all the pressures that we've got, I kept the Director of Social Services involved, but this was something that we drove, identifying staff within social services to actually then take it on and take it through. So it was something that we were empowered to get on with. Again, not all organisations work like that. Some organisations will have whole tiers of decision-making that they've got to go through before they could get it signed off, and that sometimes will stifle the ambition to be able to deliver these types of innovative approaches. But certainly from my experience, we were able to just get on with it, really.
Oh, sorry, go on, Antonio. Then I wanted to nip in with a question to Jose.
Thank you. Maybe just to say two reflections. So one was that it's important to remember that all these AI technologies, they are still products/services. So all of the excellent principles that CDPS and others espouse of user centricity, they have to be like at the forefront. So I always say, and I'm sure it's oversimplified, but like if it's not intuitive, don't use it. And basically, if it needs a manual for somebody to read, it won't work. And I encourage everyone to kind of have that as a modus of kind of thinking, is this thing going to fly? Just on the ways to get senior buy-in, maybe just some reflections from the UK government and approaches there. So at least three things probably were done. So one was kind of obviously very, very strong prime ministerial focus on AI. And it was very, very important that that AI Opportunities Action Plan was launched by the Prime Minister and the Secretary of State for Technology, not just the Secretary of State for Technology alone. The second bit was they had a very big number. You can, dig into it or not as to how much you like about the potential benefits from AI. But that number was socialized and made very, very widespread and known. And then thirdly, they asked every department to say, what are you doing to get to that number using AI? And actually all of those things combined almost put the pressure on saying, you're doing something wrong if you're not using it. There will be differing settings as to whether that works or not, but that certainly has been a big driver from a Whitehall perspective at the moment.
We'll go to Gareth, if you want to come in there, Gareth. And then we'll go to, I wanted to ask you a question, Jose, about senior buy-in.
Great, thank you. Yeah, just briefly. So from a digital literacy perspective, I think probably park the cyber use case for this one because the people using the tool are generally, capable, sophisticated, skilled, and competent and confident. But we've also been running some quite significant generative AI trials. Copilot is one of the biggest ones. So across a range of services, a range of job roles, a range of functions, a range of workforce demographics. Really interesting, the feedback and the results. And there's conversation going on now. So we've brought the proof of concept and the trials to a close. There are decisions to be made now around payback and investment. But I'll come to that in a second. On the skills and the literacy piece, it's prompting generative AI is a real skill, as I'm sure you know, and that is how you get the best out of it. And it's simply come down to the individual's attitude and desire and want to exploit it in our experience so far. Because a lot of people have said to me, well, you're bound to have identified the standout job roles where we can invest now and take this further and give it to all of them. To which my response is actually no, because even we have people on the trials from consistent job roles, and person A in that job role is exploiting it to the hilt. Prompt 400 or 500 times a month usage, requests, prompts, etc. And a person on that trial in exactly the same job role, in exactly the same organisation, with all of the training and support and promptathons and feedback that it's not for me, tried it a couple of times, didn't work, sort of thing, which I find really interesting, I'm not sure what the answer is to that, but there's obviously a disconnect and a huge, stark difference in that scenario. And from a leadership buy-in perspective, I think I go back to my previous point, that our senior leaders, our directors and our chief execs, again, there's a groundswell of support and acknowledgement that digital and transformation and technology and the SAI and automation and all that good stuff can drive significant efficiencies. So if I'm honest, within our organisation, it wasn't a big sell because I think they recognised the opportunity. And we started small with the co-pilot stuff. It wasn't an enormous investment. We have digital transformation funding aligned where we can run those proof of concepts. But now, and I mean literally now, in this week and last week, now there's really interesting conversations going on around, okay, how do we scale this up? Because it will cost for us in Carmarthenshire well in excess of £1 million a year to give it to everybody, which I don't think we're there yet. We don't have £1 million a year. If I ask for £1 million a year, someone wants to know exactly where I'm going to save £2 million a year, £3. That gets pretty interesting and pretty challenging and pretty provoking, that conversation, because you can all imagine where the payback would possibly come from, because it's generative AI, isn't it? And we're learning a lot from that conversation, more from that conversation and the appetite there than we did from the trials, maybe. So, yeah.
So I just wanted to ask Jose that question about senior buy-in. You've come up with this incredibly innovative approach to a problem that every Prime Minister that I can remember has committed to solve. How do you get buy-in to take that into production?
Yeah, thank you for, it's a controversial topic. Yeah, so my vision under technical perspective, not political perspective. So in technical perspectives, this technology, the self-healing technology, definitely we are creating technology to resolve real problems in road infrastructure. So the self-healing technology probably started 10 years ago. So with several technologies, we're using induction heatings, using weights, using capsules, microcapsules. Now we can natural spore. So what's the dream? So the dream probably we need, definitely the problem is the money. So we need investments, more money to research, to increase the research inside the university, inside the centers, to design new solutions, focus on microcapsule solution technology, powered artificial intelligence. Maybe we need 4 years more to increase the technology, improve the technology, and upscale the technology, because the problem is the upscale on the real roads. Kilograms of this capsule is so difficult to produce in the labs. We need collaboration with the industry to upscale the technology and to resolve the problems. Concerning to the Prime Minister announcement, so basically, today, the council you needs report your potholes in order to receive the money, or you justify your money. So for that reasons, you can incorporate self-healing technology, or you can incorporate several technologies to improve the safety life of the roads. But the pothole is a problem not only in UK. I'm sorry about that. It's a problem across the world. I originate from Chile, it's exactly the same problem. It's exactly the same problem with the potholes, and exactly the same problem with the money. For that reason, what is the solutions? I don't know. So probably we can increase the budget per year, or you can more money for the university. Today, the situation in the university is critical across the UK. So, in summary, what's the next steps?
So it's a global pothole industry that you're
absolutely
describing.
Yes, absolutely.
Rooted in Swansea,
including Swansea. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I hope that happens. Right. Other question. Let's go here and then over there. Thank you. And could you say who you are when you ask your question? Thanks.
Hi, my name's Mandy Garrett. I'm Director of Technology at Transport for Wales. And thinking about the Future Generations Act, which I incidentally put into a free AI tool to turn into a podcast to make it much more interesting to listen to than to read, which was really cool. But in relation to that, and this might be for Antonia maybe, if you had to pick any examples, like your top 3 standout AI contributions to making that act really effective, have there been any, or if there haven't, theoretically, what could they be? Sorry.
Goodness me. Honestly, I'm not. I'm confident that the benefits will get there. I don't think anyone, and you can see lots and lots of examples where on an individual service level there has been a change. You don't see many examples where there has been huge financial or cashable benefit in many instances, and particularly for public services where demand is going up, actually. I think, Gareth, to your workforce point, actually, a lot of it is about managing that increasing demand, the shark jaws. So I'm struggling to answer really well that question, because I think the coolest, most interesting, most exciting examples that we see of AI technologies are almost trying to solve problems which we don't have yet at the moment. So the way that one of the things writing the book that completely shocked me was when you talk to the big frontier model developers, they're just talking a completely different game. So, I mean, the US administration has done its best to reduce this, but the magnificent kind of 7 or whatever in the stock market, they have about, I think it's $12 trillion of economic value invested in AI. OpenAI used to have a cap on how much they could give their investors in return out of 100x. So they said it's not reasonable to ask for more than 100 times your investment. They've got rid of that cap. Okay, so they are obviously assuming, or people are betting, that there are multi-trillion, hundreds of trillions of dollars of benefit that is going to happen to the world from AI. And the reality is that's bigger than all of our economies combined. So the point that leads me to is that we need to try and imagine completely different ways of running everything in order to actually get those benefits, because everything will be effectively a productivity benefit, which might be up to 20 to 30, 40% even, which would be great. But I don't think any productivity benefit from the way services currently exist will meet the brilliant aspirations of the Future Generations Act. So there is a lot of work that still needs to be done to reimagine that future. And that is both exciting and terrifying, because we've got to do the day job at the same time.
Anyone else want to contribute to that one? I mean, that is mind-boggling, isn't it? Because who's going to pay for all the stuff? If no one has to work, who's going to pay for all the stuff?
I don't mind adding a little bit on that, because this was something that we spoke about, a couple of us in the room here a while back, about where there is scope. I'm not saying that this is proven, but there is a lot of scope. And oh, we don't have the slide up anymore. But if, say, we think about a connected Wales, right? Communities do often, I do end up making this comment that technology might actually distance us from each other, but there is so much scope to creating platforms for people to come together and actually interact with each other. And we saw an increase and a boom in that participation on online platforms. And this could also then move into, say, upskilling of a local group of, say, students, right? Maybe the students come together and build that platform, and then that platform is actually trialed around with like the local community and the local region. So you're not only improving digital literacy, you're not only improving the skills of, say, a young group of students, but you're actually using a platform to connect groups of communities who might actually be very far from each other. We also had a point about this, the Welsh Government and public sector bodies sit on so much of really good health data, but it's really a matter of how we use that effectively and in a way that protects that data at the same time, because it is still personal care data, but there is that scope for it. And I think alongside the potholes, there is a potential to use it for digital twins in terms of monitoring roads and seeing where we need to introduce maintenance requirements, see what demand is looking like, see how many trucks are passing through to see whether we need to improve our strategies for these kind of things. So I'm just saying there's a lot of scope for it. And from hearing from different universities, there are people who are actually working on all of this, and universities make it so much more easier than a private company who is probably offering you the same service but for a lot of money. So
there we go, I think I turned it on. So Jo Goodwin, CDPS. So I want to thank you first for reminding us of the people. Thank you. And Antonio for mentioning user-centered design as well, because I think it's really easy to get excited, and throughout the presentations, the opportunity that presents itself. And then as we were reminded of people and how we deliver services to real people, my question is around, are we confident that we have the skills, the ethics and the data maturity to really scale across Wales?
Who wants to pick that up, that tricky hot potato? Maybe we should get someone in the audience to answer that one.
Yeah, hi. I'm confident that we are thinking about it. I haven't got all the answers, but I am confident that there is acknowledgement across the board for us in our organisation. I can't speak for anywhere else. I suspect it's a similar. We all recognise, and it's a message that we give internally to our leadership and to our colleagues in our workforce, AI will not be a technical challenge for us in any way. You know, like the cyber use case, it just works. You pay the suppliers, they work with you, it works. It won't be a technical challenge. The challenge for us is all about ethics. What is the right way to implement it in the right place? How do we support people to exploit it safely and ethically? Where do we deploy it? Where do we allow it to make decisions? Where do we retain a human in the loop, which has come up today? There is huge recognition that that's the challenge. That's the strategy question we have to answer. Those are the things we have to think about. It's on a case-by-case basis as this thing evolves and as the opportunities present themselves is how I would see it. But at least we're in that headspace. At least we're thinking in that way would be my view.
Chris, don't you? Oh, Smaria.
You want?
No, Smaribon.
Okay, so taking it, I know I promised I'm not going to sell you a concept or a project, but finally got a chance to. One of the projects I've recently worked on is the AI Ethics and Governance in Practice program, and CDPS, one of the guidances that's provided online is actually the original piece of work that we created, and this was part of the UK's national AI strategy. A huge part of this work is that it's open access. It's 8 workbooks that's aimed at public sector to skill themselves in having that common vocabulary about what ethics actually means, so that everyone's on the same page about, say, what explainability means, what safety means, what transparency means, and really being able to do this at a self-paced method. And more importantly, it being open access means that everyone can have access to it to train yourselves. And these kind of resources would also be helpful for the general public, for maybe someone who's planning on entering public services. So I think in terms of skills, there are resources available for that upskilling. I do not want to comment on whether or not Welsh government does have it, but I think events like this, from all of the time I've spent with CDPS and the kind of work they've been doing for, I think, the modern leadership activities as well, is showing that there is at least work being, things in place to improve that skills gap and to improve everyone's knowledge and understanding of this. So I don't, even if it's not perfect, there's at least some work being done towards it.
And Chris, I think you wanted to come in.
Yeah, I think, just following on from Gareth's points, really, it's around putting the guardrails in place as the technology evolves and as you deploy it within the organisation. So for us at the moment, it's about controlled pilots, testing the water, making sure that we're considering implications to our standard operating procedures, adjusting those and adapting them where required, but making sure that we've got the human in the loop, that they're the ones who are signing off the outputs from the tools, be that stuff that through Magic Notes, or be it job descriptions that are being created by HR through Copilot. There's a whole range of different use cases that we've got. It's just making sure that the human is in the loop with that, and that the controls are there, and that they fully understand the implications, so that we don't fall foul of ethics or bias or whatever it might be as we deploy in a safe and secure way.
Antonio, if I think we need to get briefer in our. We've got at least 3 more questions that I would really like to fit in.
A great question. The bit then that I would add, and I agree with the general confidence of the PSC who have had the privilege of working across quite a lot of Wales on this. The bit where I think nobody is cracked, and it's a skills bit, and it's true for almost every country, is at the minute everything we're talking about is about taking AI and applying it to existing services. So the benefit will be a productivity gain or an improvement, etc. Actually, Samira did talk about data centers. I'm not saying you should all lobby for data centers and small modular reactors. However, The unanswered question is, where is economic value going to accrue and to who from AI? So is that through new jobs? Is that through jobs displacement? Is that through data centres? Is that through spillover benefits, which we don't know yet? And it's really important, I think, for Wales, but for every country to make some, as Chris said, strategic bets as to what might those things be. Because if places don't make those bets, then they are guaranteed to only ever be a recipient of AI rather than a shaper in it.
And I'll just add one point, which is that if you read the Future Generations Act and act accordingly, you won't do bad stuff. That's a very simplistic thing, but it's, you know, if you take it seriously, that's my view, you won't do bad stuff. Right, question from Pete, then question from Glyn, and a couple of questions there. So we're going to have to, ask for fairly brief answers. So Pete.
No, it does. Very brief comment, really. It's really, really gratifying to hear you talk about humans in the loop and the cautious approach. The UK government does scare me with this kind of gung-ho approach a little bit. But what I'm really going to say is that the future generations as a consideration is really, really important for us. And Smira, Mike from Welsh Government over there, Ed, and I have worked with the Future Generation Commissioner's Office recently to try to bring together some examples of how AI could be used in conjunction with the Future Generations Act. So the question is really, does anybody want to talk to us about it? We'd love to hear what you're doing, what you're thinking. So it's not to the panel unless you want to contribute, but we'd like to take that further and bring that to the public.
Okay, unless anyone desperately wants to respond to that, I might go to the next proper question. Oh, that's it. Absolutely agreed there. And you know, again, this event feels like a place where things could kick off. I'm going to go to Glyn, though.
It's okay. I'm not going to ask a question either. So I've already asked two for the price of one. I wanted to, Joe. I think the point about data skills we can talk for ages about. We don't have enough. But on the ethics side, I think Chris has been really great earlier. The fact that he shared the DPIA and everything around Magic Notes with everybody else. And we did the same with Copilot, and I hope you all found that useful when we shared DPIA and Copilot, because we were first to it. So I think let's not reinvent the wheel. I know I bang on our collaboration all the time. We discussed it in the Health and Care AI Commission. 7 health boards all want to do their own data governance assessments, ethics assessments of a tool which has probably been approved 20 times over in different places. Let's trust each other a little bit. There's always going to be an information asset owner or a CSIRO who needs to sign it off. We've got to get that culture of trusting each other, that we've done the impact assessments and something, the ethics assessment has been done, and read it and to say, yep, that sounds good. So I think that's something where we can save some time as well. Thanks.
Yeah, I think we can be 100% sure that in the AI space, perfect is the enemy of the good, for sure. Right, so we've got a question here and then a question there. So if we start here, please. And if you could say who you are.
Can you hear me? Yeah? So I'm Antonio Gila, the head of engineering at Swansea University. I got 2 comments for the panelists, questions, actually. So one is on the absorption of AI. It seems to me that now people understand that AI, what in the past we used to call computer modeling for decades, speed up processes. It's very clear that everything that you had to do in the past that would take you an hour, now you could do it in 1 minute. But I don't think productivity, and Antonio has gone into this direction, so it's interesting. I don't think productivity is just doing tasks fast. I think we're missing a strong opportunity, which is to change processes. You know, writing a report should not be needed anymore because the machine can do it for us. What's the value on writing a report and storing it? Except the fact that we are ultra bureaucratized with a strong audited processes. And this is something that we change. This is a strategic decision. Otherwise, we're not going to get that level of productivity. In research, which is what we do in university, this is well acknowledged. I'm all the time, even as head of a school, fighting to get rid of processes so we can move very fast. And even in universities these days, that's very difficult. So I'd like to know the views of the panel. The second one is about something that has not been touched, which is what happened to the generation that is coming now. Okay, because us, we're seeing AI as we speak, but we've been educated in an old system where, we use pen and paper, we write equations, we understand, we read books. Now, our children don't do that anymore. They're not going to be doing that. Aren't we going to rather than evolve, involve. I think we're going through a very dangerous phase in years of possible involution unless we really embrace the technology and we teach it as it should be taught, as a very useful tool to learn. Otherwise, the gap between us and those behind us is going to be massive, and it's going to be very difficult to investigate what's the new vaccine for COVID or for whatever comes. So this is really a dangerous problem that we need to face.
Can I answer the second question? I want to leave the first one to more experts over here. But on the second thing, and I think as someone who I'd like to see myself as a young person myself, I grew up in the internet generation. I'm a child of the dot-com boom. Most of the things I learned on the internet, I learned by myself. No one taught me. I mean, you had computer science classes, but I think they taught me Excel sheets or something, and I didn't care enough about a pivot table as much as I did going on, say, Club Penguin, right? And I think we need to give the credit to the future generations that they also are currently doing that. They're playing with these things, they're toying around with this, and they're figuring out how to work with it as and when it comes out. And the more we try to standardize our approach to they need to learn A, B, and C in this particular manner, I don't know how far we'd actually get. Because one thing about kids are they're not going to listen to you. The more you want them to, the less they're going to. But I would instead argue that alongside that regular computer education, we need to have a more distinct understanding of, or at least like a collective understanding of how we want to, share the ethics behind it, all right? Maybe not using the word ethics because it does overwhelm a lot of people, but really understanding that there are challenges with using this, that understanding that this data didn't come out of thin air, it is based on people around you, that they can start trying to identify where, say, biases might arise. So they don't just understand how to, say, create a model using a lot of GitHub resources and Microsoft Copilot, which is running on the parent's computer that they're accessing past 11 at night when everyone's asleep. But they also are noticing that they need, say, better data sets if they want to have better vaccine delivery. And I think that's possibly a future that can be built from ground up, but we need to involve, and I know this might be hard to believe, we need to involve children in this process as well. It is harder, but they need to be, and say, for instance, Scottish government is doing that right now. They have a children's parliament and they have released multiple policies and pilot programs with different schools to understand how children are interacting with this data in order to improve how we are governing it, but also governing forms of data that they're using. So hopefully that answers the...
Great. I think for me, the two questions are inextricably linked, because let's face it, change is tough, change is difficult. Local government isn't known for being the most dynamic of organisations, and to try and change processes, as shocked as it is, Gareth, to try and change processes is really difficult. And where we see the biggest change coming is when you tend to get new people coming through. So children of today who will only know a world with AI in it, be looking at some of the processes that we've got at the moment going, what the hell are you doing? Why is that the process that you follow? Look at all the waste that's in that. And just because that's the way you've always done it, isn't the way you should do it going forwards. So for me, unfortunately, it's going to be a long road. It's going to be a long process. We need, change champions. We need change agents. We need people who are going to drive that agenda, show the benefits, and sell them back to the organisation, but also to the wider local government organisations across Wales as well. So it's going to be a slow burner, very challenging, and we've got to work with what we've got at the end of the day.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, so I would add to that. I agree with you, and this is a message we are trying to get through. So internally, the things we're showing our colleagues and our leaders at the moment, I think generally the reaction is, oh great, this will make us quicker, faster, more productive, better. Great, true. But what I'm really trying to get them to, or we are all trying to understand, is this is going to smash some of our service models to pieces. It just is going to, and I hope it does in some instances. That's a bit of a slow burner, if I'm honest, in terms of getting some certain people to understand that and to recognise that. And you can almost see the penny drop when it happens, So I attended a head teachers conference recently to give a corporate view on AI and how we're using it, how we see it. And they played this back to me, you know. I could see the penny drop with some of them, that the current teaching and learning model is destroyed, really, because of generative AI, you know. And there's experts in the room who would know far more than I on this, and there were experts in that room, but is there any point giving a 15-year-old an assignment and asking them, write me a report and submit it in 2 weeks? It's gone, it's out the window. That model is all over. So there's a huge opportunity there, isn't there? So I completely, what you've said resonates with me. And I can say the same for our software developers and the way they work, our translation unit, the way they work. It's gone, you know. But we still need proofreaders, we still need accountability, but it needs to be redesigned. And perhaps I'll just finish. I would take my professional hat off and I'll wear my father hat. So I have 2 kids. Samira's obviously met them because she mentioned they never listen, so yeah. So I use ChatGPT in my personal life on my phone, the paid-for version. So I'm talking to ChatGPT, obviously verbally. My 10-year-old son saw me talking to Chat. I could see his eyes light up the other day. He said, "Can I use that?" And I knew exactly what he was thinking. He was thinking about his homework, wasn't he? He was thinking about school, and then I was thinking about, well, not without me, no. And I really didn't know what the answer was. So I see the opportunity for him to learn and for it to help him with his maths and, you know, teach him certain concepts and remind him. I see that huge opportunity, and then I'm sat there wondering about what will this. There must be downsides. I don't really know what they are, but there's risks here. And how is he going to be in 30 years' time when he's been doing that and interacting with AI and all of the knowledge that it has? Yeah, I have no answers. I suppose what I'm saying is what you've said and asked resonates professionally. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got time for one more question. Just when we were at Cardiff University last Friday, I was thinking, so it sounds like lecturers are becoming experts in detecting when people have cheated and nothing more, which is not what they're going to be. But last question, could you say who you are?
Is that working? Yeah. My name's Andrea Jones. I'm from a company called Visveria. We build AI agents. I'm also president of the UK Association of Change Managers. So with that in mind, it's the speed of change that I have a question about. 10 days ago, the UK medical authorities approved the first AI-only device with no human in the loop, based on a 99.8% accuracy for scanning. What's your thoughts on the speed of change, given that we're already approving devices with no human in the loop?
I'll just briefly answer before handing it over, but worries me. To Chris's point around, and I can only speak for our organisation at the moment, but that is the thing that worries me the most about this stuff, our ability to cope, our ability to adopt it, redesign our services, exploit it safely and ethically without things going seriously wrong in the most extreme examples. That is my biggest concern.
Antonio, do you want to come in? Because you said something about, maybe the human won't always be in the loop.
Yeah. So I guess for lots of these questions, I would say that meta point about, remember, we've been through these things before. So like general purpose technologies do come about, and the internet changed everything. I remember when I was studying 25 years ago, and maybe I don't look it, but it's true. And we weren't allowed to use Google, or whatever. In fact, it wasn't even called Google. It was Ask Jeeves or whatever back then. You were not advised to use it. Wikipedia was seen as you would never be allowed to use it. And one of the really important things is, as a society, and I would say particularly as educationalists, and I think universities, I do work with various universities, don't do enough reflection on what they did and didn't learn from that change for the internet era in terms of education. Just in terms about the pace of change, though, the biggest indicator of the successful adoption of any new technology is overall societal adoption of technology. So one of the reasons why India is steaming ahead with its AI adoption is because it's a lot younger than the UK and is a lot more digitally native by design. One of the reasons why China is also steaming ahead is both younger and it's mandated. The UK, I think we have to reflect there is a natural pace of change, which may mean that we are behind certain countries. And actually, I think it's dangerous to push that too hard and too fast. At the same time, it's really important, I think, to go and ask patients or clients, for if you're a caregiver, who's using ChatGPT. And actually, I think we will be surprised. It's probably 70-75%. Most people are using this all the time. So actually, if they're using it in the day-to-day life, that will drive the pressure for why aren't you just adopting it in public services.
Jose, any comment?
I have no question. So I have no answer. So it's a difficult, difficult topics. So for that reason, we have several perspectives, one question with different answer. So probably summary, let me back for the pothole problem. So, yeah, so basically, to resolve these problems, so in the real world, you need to increase the budget, you need to increase the commitment between the relationship between research plus government. Because the money is in the government, and the government we need to increase our infrastructure to resolve our problem, because road is a social concept, because everyone here uses a road every day. So we need to increase the budgets and increase the relationship. It prevents the damage. We need to improve the technology for our roads, but hopefully we can resolve the problem in the future. So one question with different answer in summary.
Thank you so much. I mean, this has genuinely been kind of mind-boggling and fascinating, and has extended my brain and my thinking massively. So I hope it has for everybody here. Thank you very much to our 5 panelists. So, this is our Dolenni Digidol's are regular events. The next one will be in North Wales. We will actually have some more AI case studies and some more AI conversation in 2 months in North Wales. I just wanted to say we do have, we ask you to, if you wouldn't mind, to give us some feedback on the way this event it happens, the kind of conversation, the way it's structured, kind of speakers we have, maybe different topics that you would like us to explore. So if you want to capture the QR code and give some feedback, that would be absolutely brilliant. So we've got the room until past. We've got some nibbles and some beer. So the whole point of this is that you talk to each other. So please do, and please speak to our panelists as well. And someone can buy Magic Notes, someone can buy Gareth's Cyber. And what was your product? Ethics. Buy the ethics. Buy the ethics. Thank you very much, everybody. And go and have a drink.
So yes, if you can kindly go on to menti.com, you'll see the details there, and we really value your feedback. So if you can please do that before you go, that would be great. But yes, plenty of food, plenty of drink. Thank you very much. And thanks to our chair, Harriet.
Oh, yeah, right, okay.